Okay, now I'm recording, and I hope it's working now. I need to keep my eye on that little bouncing icon there. Let's see, today is October 9th, 2019. This is the scheduled meeting of ITSE 2309 database programming as offered by Collin College in beautiful downtown Frisco, Texas. And home of the Cowboys, by the way. And let's see. Now, I wasn't recording a minute ago, or I didn't have my audio on. And so we are in module 8 today, and I have I'm noticing some things as I'm grading the tests. I'm not real happy with the way they're going there. You cannot, this is a sophomore class. I mean, it's a 2000 level class. That means it's, well, okay, it's a lower division class, but it's not considered a real easy class, even though there aren't any prerequisites for it. And I notice a lot of people aren't watching the lectures. They're not reading the book. I ask people for their book or something, and I'm sorry, I don't have a book. You're going to have a book to get through this class. You can get them. You can get a rental version of it, an online version, and they're pretty reasonable. You just lease them for 6 months or something, or for the semester. So you're going to need a book. I don't know how people expect to live through this without a book, because I follow the book very, very carefully, even though I go out of sequence sometimes. Okay, so we're in chapter 8. Chapter 8 talks about subqueries. So in a subquery, well, let me start with the SQL syntax. And I haven't had a lot of problem with this in this class, but students will tend to shorten the syntax. For example, they will drop, when they do the joins, table joins, they will drop the word inner join, and they'll just say table A join table B on the join field. And yeah, that usually works. It depends on your platform. It doesn't work always in SQL. And I'm trying to make this class be about pure SQL. In other words, everything I say should play on all platforms in theory. In theory. Everything doesn't. For example, we have some things in here. The if object ID is not null. Well, that's not SQL. That is, if you move to an Oracle platform, you're going to have to change that a little bit. You do the same thing. You say, if that table exists, then drop it. But if you just copy it directly. So I'm trying to stick with stuff that you can just pick up and copy directly. So I'm going to adhere to the strict guidelines of SQL. When you get to the advanced class and you want to shorten the syntax, I say, hey, go for it, because you know what you're writing to. For example, you can drop later. You'll be able to drop you'll be able to drop inner join, outer join, inner and outer. And so you could say just left join or right join, and it will be an outer join. You can just say join, and it'll be an inner join. Yeah, that's fine. You can drop the as. You can shorten a lot of things. Let's see, the syntax, A join B means inner join. I say all platforms support this syntax. That isn't exactly true. Not all platforms do. So we are going to, oh yeah, and let's see, this platform lets us drop the semicolon. I won't. So I need a semicolon at the end, because other platforms are going to require it, that it be there. So I'm going to be a bit of a jerk about that. Okay, subqueries. The subquery itself, I gave the lecture here for Dr. King's lecture. It's worth watching. He's kind of funny. He talks really, really fast, but he's I forget where he is. Newmont University. I don't know where that is. So what I can do is, usually when I have a query and the query has a join in it. And if everything in the query's output comes from one table, and we're just using the join to validate the records we want. So for example, I want all the vendors who have show me, vendor name, vendor ID, who have a balance due of over $100 or something like that. Okay, where do I get the balance due? I have to hit the invoices table for balance due. So that means I'm going to have a join, but everything in the output of that query comes from one table. Anytime I'm in that world, I am in the world that is, I personally prefer, you can do it either way. You can have either a subquery or you can write it as a table join just fine, but this particular section is about subqueries. So I want you to write your answers here as subqueries. I gave them all to you in terms of that. So I can write it like this. So here's the first swag at it goes, let's see, what is it? So childless parent. Okay, so show me vendors whose names, all vendor stuff whose names have no associated invoice. Childless parent queries work well as subqueries. They do because everything's coming from one table. If it's a childless parent, I can't possibly have anything about the child being output. They're all going to be null. So that they work very well. And to change this to a subquery, I say select vendor name from vendors where vendor ID is not in, and then select vendor ID from invoices. Okay, so this is the subquery version. There is no particular difference. I don't know what the runtime support system is going to do with this thing. It might change it to table join. It might take a table join and change it into a subquery. I don't have any idea. Well, I can find out. So we're going to learn how to find out what the system is doing under the covers. But for the most part, I just want it to run, and the system is free to change how it does it as long as it gives you the correct output. So I'm saying I want childless parent. This particular query, both of these will give us the same results. And I should have opened my SQL browser. I didn't. Shame on me. It's okay. I'm going to have to leave a little bit early today. I've got to pick up my wife from a doctor's appointment. I'll probably leave and come back, so you won't have to leave. So if you want to stay, but I'm gonna put a lid on my talking a little earlier, but you can still stay in class. Let's see, connect. Okay, use. And we'll go over here and get both of these queries. Copy, paste. So the top query, this is a childless parent query. So this shows the vendor names that do not have any associated invoices. I think I'm going to have 60 or 70 of them. Actually, I've got more, 89 of them. I've got more vendors without invoices than I do with invoices. And so there they are. I probably should have put an order by on them so that the order by vendor name. And so if I put the order by on them, then they'll both be, the output should be exactly the same and in the same order. And so select vendor name from vendors. Nah. Now notice that the order by goes in the outer. There is no reason to put any kind of an order by on the subquery. Don't put an order by. Don't say select distinct vendor ID. The vendor ID is going to be, no, the vendor ID is a foreign key in invoices. So you can have duplicates in there. That's fine. It doesn't hurt anything. But if you're using in, don't say distinct because that actually slows down your performance a little bit. And don't order by because it makes no sense at all to order that subquery. We're only ordering the outer query. So if I run this, execute, I get the same 89 rows, exactly the same. I'm always going to get the same. So for a childless parent query, outer join, the subquery works very well. Yes, sir, go ahead.
Subquery will be just a query that is based on the answer from another query, like the data on another query?
Right, it is. So instead of joining the tables, so when you join the tables, you, in theory, you create every possible combination of that. So you do a Cartesian product, and you get every possible combination, and then you go through and you find the ones that you want. That's why I like teaching the older syntax. It shows that a little bit better. In the using the subquery, I say, okay, we run this subquery, and then I go through and validate the records I want against that table that's the subquery. That's the theory. In theory, that's what happens. In reality, what happens is we don't know. It's magic. No, it's not really magic. There's this little man inside your computer that, no, not really. But it's that works the same way, and that's why we talk about SQL is a strange language, because it is not. Notice that we are specifying what the answer looks like, and then the support system goes and finds our figures out how to program itself to get our to give us our answer. So it is truly artificial intelligence. Some are more intelligent than others, but that's what we're doing here. And anyway, let me go on with this, the subqueries. I wanted to talk about, what am I talking about next? In a subquery, the syntax requires the parentheses around the subquery. So in, after the word in comes parentheses. By the way, in, you can type, it makes sense. I don't know whether I'm going to get any answers out of this or not, but I can say select vendor first name, F name, I think it was, vendor contact. I guess I need to go look at my database. Let's see, what was it? Vendor contact F name, okay. Vendor contact F name. From vendors where in, okay, here's my subquery coming up, but I'm not going to write a subquery. I'm going to write Joe, Bob, Bill. I probably won't get into it, and I guess it would make more sense to look at their last name. Yeah. Okay, that's fine. So let's see if we got any. I don't know whether we have anybody named Joe or Bob or Bill, but whatever, I should not get an error here. If I do, I'm not going to be happy. Oh, look, I got one. Whoever Lee is, last name Lee, is his first name is either Joe or Bob or Bill. So I guess I could go find out, but I don't really care. I just wanted to demonstrate that I can use in that way. And it's handy sometimes just to be able to make a set and just put things in it that I want to test against. Okay, so I could have said where vendor contact first name is equal to Joe or equal to Bob or equal to Bill, but then I would have had to have typed it. I would have had a lot of typing. So you know, if you love to type like I love to type, you like anything that's shorter. Okay, some people, including me, believe that the subquery is more intuitive and generally a subquery is the same. Professor King raises the idea of distinct, and I'm going to go to next. I think I've already covered this page. Subquery, I believe I have talked about this one too, finding the maximum and the minimum in a table, where I might have ties for the maximum or the minimum. Let's see, invoice total. I'm going to go to my invoices table, and I'm going to say edit the top, edit 200 rows. So let's take a look at the data. By the way, you can change data here. This is just Access's big brother. Now, this course isn't about using the graphical user interface, but I can change data here if I want to. And let's see, I want to find the greatest payment total. Okay, let's find the greatest payment in invoices. So I'm going to say select. Invoice ID. Invoice ID. Max. That right? From invoices. Remember our rule, I've got an aggregate function and a non-aggregate function, so I have to group by. That's going to be a big part on test 2. I'm going to be looking for that. Do you group by the non-aggregate? So I have to group by invoice ID. And I'm going to order by payment total. Order by P, and up here I'll say as P. I should always rename, anytime I have an aggregate field like that, I should rename the field. So let's see what we get. I didn't put the syntax near invoice ID, group by invoice ID. What's wrong with this? Oh, I forgot to say group by. My bad. All right, so so the maximum invoice total is found on invoice number, what? Invoice number 39. And invoice 96 is the next one, okay? So I might take a copy of that so I keep it handy. Put it in Notepad. So $37,966.19. is the greatest one. So let's find the max. Find the maximum payment total. So select payment total, and I'm going to use a subquery here. Select payment total from invoices, where payment total is in Now, I personally like when I do a subquery, I drop to the next line, open my parentheses, drop one more line, and tab inside of that guy. Make sure nobody's okay. So select max payment total from invoices. And I don't know why it's still showing red. Oh, forgot to close. Okay. So now this should give me the maximum payment total. I get the invoice ID, payment total. I do not have to group by here because that aggregate function is hidden down in the subquery. I do not have to rename the aggregate field in the subquery because it doesn't make any difference what its name is. It doesn't help any. I could, I guess, but there's no reason to have it named as P or something like that. So when I do this, I'm going to get the invoice number 39 has that value, $37,966.19. And the question then becomes, what if I had duplicates? Why? And so I could select them and order by and say the top 10, give me the top 10 or the top 5. How do I know I'm going to have 5? How do I know? I only want the duplicates. So if I have 3 duplicates, I want to see 3 rows. If 3 ties, I want 3. If I have 10, I want to see 10 rows. Okay. So I'm going to go in and mess with the data. Don't mess with the data. I'm going to change number 7 to be that. So I'll just run my script again. You're free to do this. If you want to go fool with the data, go fool with the data, but always keep that script handy that, to create AP_DB .SQL, create AP.SQL. This one? That's over here in the Object Explorer. You open the database. Bingo. Open it. I go to the table I want the vendors table. I right-click the vendors table and I say edit top 200 rows. Don't say select, say edit. Edit is a lot better. If you say select, you get an SQL statement over there. And so if I want to change the data, I can change the data, I can add rows, I can delete rows, I can throw anything in there that I want to. And then to put it back like it was when it was before you got it like it is now, I run that script that created it, and 5 seconds later, everything will be back. So it's nice having it, having that ability. Well, let's go take a look at it and see what happens. Run him again. And now since I've changed the data, I'm going to run this one more time. It was supposed to change. Did I not change? Oh, I didn't leave the field. When you edit something like that and you want it to change, you have to leave the field. So just if you change it, you haven't changed it yet. But when you press enter or you click out of that field, and database is like that. Database always happens right then. Database doesn't happen in memory. You don't save a database. You don't have save as. When you make the change, it changes right then. If you want to unchange it, it's actually pretty difficult. it can be done. But okay, now we'll see it happen. Now I'm getting both of them. Okay, the ties. And if I put 10 ties in there, I would get 10 of them. So this, by the way, is the only way I know of to do this. And it is kind of a tricky little, it's a nice little trick for a subquery when you can just, a subquery is the best for this. Finding the minimum, finding the maximum, finding, here's a challenge for you. I might give you this one as a challenge. Using a subquery, find all of them that are within 1 standard deviation of the average. Now, I can find the average pretty easily, and I just tell you, and you have to take my word for it because it's not in the book. You have a function, an aggregate function, that gives you the standard deviation. What's a standard deviation? Don't look at me like that. Yes, yes. It speaks to, if you're throwing darts at a, at a target, most of them are kind of going to group about the center, and as you go out farther and farther out, you get fewer and fewer dart holes in the wall. And you'll find 1 or 2 over there in the corner of the room someplace, but in general, they're going to be grouped about the center, and the standard deviation sounds like military intelligence or something. Standard deviation speaks to how well do the data group about that center. So if you have a very high standard deviation, they're scattered all over El Elyon. If you have a very small standard deviation, they tend to group very closely. So if I say, and 1 standard deviation, it's a standard deviation is usually the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. And in the 3rd standard deviation, you have essentially all of them, although they could fall outside of that. Anyway, so if you have a standard deviation, you say, okay, the mean plus the standard deviation, the mean minus the standard deviation, and get that in a subroutine. I'll show you how to do that. And then select everybody where that value is in that set. It's not, conceptually, it's pretty easy. It gets a little messy, but it's kind of fun to do. Find everyone who is above average. Well, we're all above average. No, we're not. Can't be. Okay. We'll take that one with average and stuff. But there it is. The subquery that finds the minima or the maximum values, and it finds ties also. I can tell you what it is pretty easily. I can tell you that the maximum is 37,000, whatever it was, but I can't tell you, Joe and Bob and Bill all have those. I can't give you the information. Again, we're in that situation where everything that all of my output comes from 1 single table. In this case, the invoices table, but it only comes from 1 table, 1 piece of it. I'm not joining the tables. I could get it through a table join, but this is a whole lot easier. The subquery is a lot easier. So remember that particular little trick anytime that you're finding. I want to find the minimum people with the highest grade in the class, and I want ties in there. Subquery. Oh, let's see. What time is it getting to be? Okay. And let's see. I think I'm talking about this here. I'm pointing out that yes, you can. This is finding the maximum invoice total, which is the same thing that I just ran. It might be a different field, I don't know. And I'm pointing out down here that I can do it using a table join, but it's a little messier. Okay, in versus equal. Max in. So select vendor where max is equal to. Sometimes people will write this using equals. And it works. I think it works. I'm expecting it to work. Boom. Yes, it worked. Equals. Well, tell me, what does that equal mean to you, that equal sign? This really gives me trouble. I don't like this this type of thing. Tell me, what does equal mean? Is the same thing as. Okay, what is on the left side? What kind of a thing is on the left side of that equal sign? What is this? Payment total. What is that? That's money. That's a number. Okay, and we're interpreting it as money. What is on the right side of this thing? A table. A table that happens to have one value in it. That is not the same thing as a number. It's a table with one value in it. And here is where all of my colleagues say, oh, Smith, just get over it. Just that's the way we do it. And I'm not going to get over it. I'm going to argue with them. But I've already lost because that's the way they do it. If the thing on the right side, or either side really, but it's usually the right side, thing on the left side is a number, the thing, or it has a value. The thing on the right side is exactly one value, meaning one element and one row. Okay. Then it will work. Then you can say equal to. Now, okay, questions. I'm not going to go into it. Some databases will allow you to say where more than one value is in the set that contains more than one value. For example, where vendor ID, comma, payment total is in, and then select vendor ID payment total from something else. But SQL Server will not allow you to do that. It is one value, one row. It'll work with equal. Use in. If you want to keep your instructor happy, you'll use in instead of equal. Okay, and you want to keep your instructor happy, right? Everybody say, yeah, I want to. It's a logical thing. In and equal are two different ideas, and I fuss about this all the time. But we're going to use. I prefer to see you using in. It will always do the same thing. Okay. Now, how many? What if? I want to know the payment totals that are above average. Above average. So if I said in, I very likely wouldn't get any because the average payment total is going to be some very tightly defined value. I don't think I'm going to get anybody because nobody is probably exactly average. I'll be very surprised if I get any, and I didn't. But what about above average? What about where the payment total is greater than? Above average. Okay, here we have kind of the same thing. A greater than, less than are essentially the same kind of logic that equal to is. So they're based on equal to. In fact, well, I've got greater than, less than, and equal to. and then not equal to, less than or equal to, greater than or equal to, but whatever, the three go together. So greater than, less than, equal to, or what we call the trichotomy. They're all tied together. Well, this, if equal to doesn't work, this doesn't work either, but equal to works, so therefore we will expect this to work. Again, you can expect Dr. Smith to have a similar feeling about it, and I'll share that with you in a moment. Execute, and here I have all of the 18 rows that have payment total above average. And I could have turned that around and I'd get the ones that are below average. I won't worry about the standard deviation right now, but I might do that just for giggles. Probably won't do it today. Okay, how can I fix that? So the last one was, if I said the last time, if instead of equal to, I wanted you to use in. Instead of greater than, I want you to say greater than all. Now notice it didn't turn blue. It's not part of our SQL set that we have here, but it is part of SQL. So greater than everything in there. So if I say greater than a table, well, the thing on the left isn't the same thing as the stuff on the right. But if I say I want it to be greater than everything in that set on the right, now I'm talking about things in the set. And that now makes logical sense. So if you say greater than all, say, well, there's only one thing in there. So it will work with as greater than. So anytime you're using greater than or less than, please use the word all after it. There is another one that you'll see in the textbook, and it's greater than or less than any. I just don't use that one very much. Greater than or less than anything in the set. If I used it in this case, it would work exactly like all, because there's only one thing in the set, so any and all would be the same thing. I'll let you figure out what it means. It means the greater than all means it is at least as large as the greatest thing. No, it is at least larger than the greatest thing in the set. And if you say greater than any, I am at least larger than the smallest thing in the set. I don't use that very much. I don't say any I just always say all. But anyway, greater than, less than, using it in a subquery like this, less than, greater than, all. And by the way, if I turn it around and I say less than, it should be the same sort of a deal. Only this time I got 96 rows. So what does this tell me? I got 18 rows that are above average and 96 rows that are below average. It tells me something about my data. What about my data? Well, they're heavy toward the top heavy, meaning that I have my mean is skewed high. I don't have that nice bell curve here on my statistics. Yeah, that's okay. All right, this isn't a statistics class, so no, we're not gonna. I am going to be teaching a statistics class. If you are, it's called descriptive analytics, and we have not been able to get it to make. Basically, it is statistics using Excel. And so we're going to go through all the statistical functions and standard deviations and stuff using Excel as if you were using a research tool. I would rather use SPSS or one of the larger packages, but we don't have that at the Collin College. So SPSS or oh, what's the other one I'm freezing on it? There's several of them. I'll think of it in a minute. Oh, why didn't I think of that name? Okay, let's keep going here. Well, we're just about to Just about to break time. Oh, correlated subqueries. This is a good place to take a break. And this is where I always struggle in trying to explain it. So I'm gonna warm up my coffee and pause the recording. Anybody online wanna ask a question, say anything?
I'm good.
I'm good.
Okay. Edward, was that you, Eduardo?
Yeah, that's me. I said I'm good. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Martin, you doing okay?
Yes, sir. Doing fine.
Okay, we're gonna take a short break here and I'm gonna pause the recording. Okay, I'm back. Short break. I'm gonna wrap up here pretty soon. And what I'm gonna do right now in class, and for those of you who are on the, I want to go to this video I have, and I haven't, it's been a while since I've looked at this one. I like Dr. King's videos, and I think it's worth playing this one in class and then discussing it. So I'm going to play it, but I'm not going to record it because there's no point in wasting bandwidth putting this on tape since you have the recording right here. So I'm going to pause the recording and then I'm going to play. So you guys that are out there in internet land are going to see it, but it won't be on the tape. So I'm pausing the recording now, again. Well, I resume my recording. What he's trying to do here, when we do a correlated subquery, there is something that is, there's some condition that's going through this. So I want the, I want the latest order for each one. So I'm going to, what I'm going to have here, let's see if we can get it using our database. Invoices, let's see, I've got an invoice date and I've got a vendor ID. So I want the latest invoice date for each vendor, okay? So let's see if I can figure out how to do this and get that right. I always struggle on these. So select vendor ID. Invoice date, okay. Max invoice date, let me try it this way. Max invoice date from max invoice date as D from invoices group by vendor ID. Let's see. And so I'm, what's that? Yeah, yes, but this isn't a correlated subquery. I need to ask it differently. Let me go back and okay, I tell you what, I'm gonna have to go pick up my wife right now. So I'm gonna come back to this one. I am, so meaning I'm going to end the lecture right now. I'm going to come back to it. This does get a little bit complicated. Am I recording? Okay, I want you to watch Dr. King's video. I know he talks very fast. He kind of mumbles and he talks a lot on the side, and so he's kind of hard to follow sometimes. Customers and think of it a lot like vendors. He's got a simple little database there that he's working on, kind of like ours. It's customers, orders, CAP, customers, agents, products database. Probably was the one by Patrick O'Neill. So he's probably using O'Neill's book, and it was CAP database, but it was customers, agents, products, orders. And so one day I was in a class with him, and I said, well, why don't you call it the Capo database? And he said, Capo is a mob boss. Oh, okay. Well, I didn't know that. He's from Boston, and he said, you don't say capo. That's a bad word. Anyway, so, but he's using a known textbook. He's probably using Patrick O'Neill's text. I don't know Dr. King personally, but he's got a good style. I guess he'd be easier if he were close. He talks a little too fast for a recording. Anyway, we're gonna use that, and I'm gonna go over that stuff again. So I will start and on next Wednesday with that. Right now, I'm afraid that I have to cut this class short. Okay, so I'll see you then. I'm going to end. Questions from anybody online?
Nope.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and end the recording. I will come back on, I will turn the meeting back on when I get back. I'm going to go ahead and end the meeting now so that it processes the recording, and then you don't have to leave. Yeah, you can stay in the room, and I'll be back in about a half hour.